Welcome to the Industry Angel Podcast. We hear from the best business minds across the globe, entrepreneurs, social influencers, marketing mavens, and sales rock stars. We've got them all. Here comes your weekly dose of inspiration with your host, Ian Farah.
If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, who you are, what your business is, and how long you've been trading.
Okay, so Louise Kennedy, my business is Oculus HR, which is a HR consultancy business. So we've been trading for coming up 7 years in April this year. And what we do is provide support for companies that have got employees. So when they can't afford to have somebody in-house, then we go in and do it for them. So we do everything from doing some contracts or holding their hands through a disciplinary process or helping companies do the succession planning or looking at the future and how the people can make it work within the businesses as well. So we're a team of 4 at the moment and we're just based in the city centre.
Fantastic, thanks Louise. Richard, would you mind doing the same?
Hi, I'm Richard Hodgson. My company's called Rockshaw. We set up myself and my brother end of 2012. We're a pharmaceutical manufacturer, so we manufacture bespoke medicines for patients specific. Slightly different to Big Pharma. We do whatever the patient needs. If they've got an issue with a certain product, we'll manufacture a bespoke product to their needs from scratch. We set up in 2012, like I said, as a wholesaler. We're a manufacturer now. We've got, I think, roughly 50 odd staff now working for us in Sunderland, and we're currently building a new site next door to where we're currently at. So that's us.
Did you say when did you start?
2012. End of 2012.
Thank you. Michael?
Hi everyone, my name is Michael Ditchburn. My business is Think Biscuit Media, and we produce bespoke e-learning solutions for businesses, from consultation to building the products to delivering them and doing animations and all that kind of fun stuff. We are the relative newcomers compared to the other 2 panellists here. We set up in 2017, so we've been going for just about 2.5 years now.
Good stuff, thank you. This morning we've been talking about entrepreneurship and enterprise and qualities, and we've had some really good discussions, and I've wrote a few notes here. I'm going to ask what you think. Richard, if I could ask you the first question, which would be, how did your business come about?
Well, my brother worked in pharma, but not in this part of the pharmaceutical industry. He was in marketing. I was like a national sales manager for a company, but I think we always had the itch to do something for ourselves. At the time when we decided to set the company up wasn't the best time. We were drunk on my stag do in Ibiza when we came up with a brilliant idea of, we could do this. We could set this up ourselves. And then, a few days later, we're hangover had gone and we thought it sounded like a good idea, but I was getting married a month later, so I thought we'll wait till after the wedding. And then we started looking into it quite in depth, and because we both had a desire to really do it ourselves and maybe try and do it better than what other people had done in the industry, we took the plunge and set up the business literally a couple of months after my stag do. And then we had to then write a ton of loads of procedures because we're heavily audited in pharmaceuticals under the MHRA, and we actually started trading in the December. So we talked about it drunk in the July and then started trading in the December. And it was myself and my brother who set up the business, and we had 1 member of staff who was the whole office. And we outsourced all of our products to a lab in the southeast, and then literally bought a database of pharmacies and probably covered about 60,000 miles each in the first year to try and get some customers because we didn't have any and we needed to feed the wife and children. So it was a lot of pressure but worthwhile, and I don't think there's anything that can drive you more than trying to do it yourself for your own business. So that was how we started. Anyone else?
Good stuff. Now, if I can ask Louise a question. So we've been talking about, are entrepreneurs made or are they born? And what we talked about was sometimes the age you start a company. Do you go into entrepreneurship young, or do you learn on the job for a number of years and then you go into entrepreneurship? So have you got a story to tell us about that?
I think I would like to think my kids would start young, and have the ability to do it. But I also think certainly what I do comes with knowledge as well. So I couldn't have gone off and set up a HR consultancy without the knowledge that I've got to be able to deal with the clients that I've got. So I think it's a little bit of both. But I think it wasn't something that was deep rooted within me. I think I worked as a HR manager for in automotive, and we were closing a site down at the time, so I was in the middle of making 150 people redundant, obviously including myself. So it was a case that I managed to organise myself quite a good settlement agreement to stay till the end. Which worked out enough money for me to be able to have the get up and go to be able to go out and do it. But I think, as Richard just said there, when you've got 2 kids at home, you've got 2 houses and you've got 2 cars, and actually your wage is the main wage, a husband just behind, but the main wage, you've got to do it. If you want it to succeed, it's only about you having the drive to be able to make that happen yourself. So I think, and I think thinking about being an entrepreneur, I don't think of myself, or certainly didn't before, about being an entrepreneur. I just had the goal of setting up a business and knowing what I wanted the business to look like, but I didn't label myself as that. But probably more so over the last 2 or 3 years, I think probably more so I do now. I think.
You're owning the term, don't worry.
Yes.
Michael, if we could ask you, what was your driving force behind wanting to found your own business?
I got made redundant.
Okay, good.
So yeah, a bit of a similar story. Actually, going back to that question about entrepreneurship, I don't consider myself an entrepreneur necessarily because of how the business was actually born. I very much was pushed as opposed to jumped, but that doesn't mean I didn't have the desire to jump at any point. I had thought about doing this sort of thing for quite a long time, but didn't, for lots of reasons. And then when the time came, actually, that's what happened. We me and my team at the time found ourselves in a bit of a sticky situation where one Friday morning we didn't have a job anymore, and I didn't have a car because it was a company car and I had to give it back, and that sucked because I really liked that car. That's kind of how it came about. I started in my converted loft at home, and with an idea and a desire just to, do something. That's how it all began.
Louise, how do you grow a successful client base?
For me, it was a huge amount about networking. I networked till I could eat 3 meals a day when I started off just networking. So I would literally just go out and meet people and talk to people and develop relationships with people, to the point where, in those first early year, really, I could go into a room and pretty much know everybody that would be on the same circle as doing the networking as what I was. And really what I was building up was that reputation of, being there, being friendly, being able to speak to people, giving a little bit of advice, little tastes of advice, and building up that audience more or less. And from doing that over time, of being able to develop but our business is really built upon referrals. So, starting off that networking at the very beginning, and doing a good job with a client, and doing another good job with another client who refers to another good job. So, I would say probably 90% of our business still comes from referral basis. Not as much networking, but the networking is a different entity now, that you pick and choose a little bit more who will want to be involved with, what you spend your time doing. To me, going to a networking event where it's got people who are just 1 or 2 people in a business isn't effective for me. If I go to an event where you've got people who have got 40, 50, 60 people in a business, my ideal client. So you think about what your model is and try and channel it a little bit more. But certainly the network was the foundation of where we started from, and it helps, your networking just changes the people that you need to be over time to develop the business into what you want to look like. Did I answer the question?
You did answer the question, yeah. Richard, you discussed about your stag do.
Oh, yeah.
And how
Let's not go into that too much.
at least you weren't in Amsterdam in a wedding dress.
No.
Yeah. It sounded like it was quite organic the way the chat came and you had the idea for the business. It sounds quite niche as well, though. So what I was thinking was, how do you market your business?
It's very restricted with marketing because just to sort of differentiate in pharmaceuticals, what you'll all know in pharmaceuticals is your licensed big pharma companies, your GlaxoSmithKlines of this world. If you go into a pharmacy and basically need a prescription, you've got to have your GP. More often than not, the pharmacist is going to have that prescription behind the counter ready for you. Take a couple of minutes, you'll be able to pass it on. Our products are classified in pharmaceuticals as specials, so they're made to order. Now, you can't because the products don't, I don't want to get too technical with terminology, but they don't carry a marketing authorization. They're unique to that patient's needs, so you can't physically advertise that we can make a specific product for a patient. All you can advertise is your services. Your sort of basically your turnaround time, your quality management systems. You can advertise all of those. You can't even advertise the price. So therefore, it's very much a service-driven market, that if you deliver a high-quality product to a pharmacy anywhere in the UK, in time, and the patient reacts well to it, and this don't die, fingers crossed, then basically that pharmacy will continue to come back, or hospital or whatever it may be will continue to use your service. There is commercial pressures as well, because they have to pay for these, and the government has to reimburse them for the payment, so you can't charge what you want, even though we'd like to. So you have to be cautious with your pricing, but also offer. It's very service driven. So we went out and saw people and knocked on doors, but it's very difficult from an e-marketing type scenario in our sector to be able to just go and spam everyone with all the products that you've got. We manufacture 7,000 different formulas, so you can't even hand out a product list. So it's very much built on reliability, service, and your standards.
As entrepreneurs, we talked about having a strategy this morning. So your strategy was quite unique for starting your business. What about the strategy to name your business?
That was the hardest thing. It was harder than writing the procedures for the business. We came up with all these fancy medical terms in Latin and different things like that. That sounded quite cool. Then you Google it and find that some company's already got it, or there's someone in Australia who's got it, or whatever. And honestly, it was really difficult. I mean, when I was a child, me and my brother always wanted to set up our own business, but when I was younger, it was a clothes business, and it was going to be called Jean Ricardo's, because he's Jonathan, I'm Richard. So it's a similar theme without the names, but ultimately it's similar. I think I'd had a few pints at the time. You can see the theme, and we'd been in I can't remember what pub it was. The one in Ashbrook, decent pub in Ashbrook. Rosedene. Been in there, had a few Stellas, and the light bulb moment came, and it was as simple as my brother lives in Roker, I lived in Penshire, so we combined the two names and came up with Rockshaw. ROKSHAW. So we quite often get asked, and there's no other pharma companies called that. So it took us a good few weeks to come up with that, but it's well received.
It's much better than Rose Stella. Could have been much worse. Okay, Michael, we talked today about working hours, and we don't work 9 to 5. So how many hours do you work in the business?
Honestly?
Yes.
It doesn't stop. Obviously, I do sleep every once in a while. It's all about the needs of the business. So when it's yours, I've heard lots of people say, "Oh, you'll never work harder than when you work for yourself." Damn, that's true. Because even when I've worked for other organisations, you can probably give about 95 to 99%, but there's that 1% of you kind of thinks, it's not mine. But when it's yours, ain't nobody going to do it for you. So I'm kind of avoiding the question. Yeah, it's somewhere between sort of 60 to 80 hours a week, something like that. Obviously, I try not to do that, because I do actually believe that a healthy work-life balance is important, because otherwise, what's the point? I'm doing this to, give myself a good life and my children as well. So there's just no point in doing it if I don't ever get to see them. So it's hard, but it's not impossible.
Okay, I'm going to pass this on to Louise. And Louise, what motivates you?
Ooh. I am just very motivated in the business. I love seeing it succeed. I love seeing the successes that the business can bring, and those successes become a personal gain for me. I was talking to someone about it yesterday, actually, and my kids were quite young when I set it up, so I think the youngest one was about 3, nearly 4, and for me it was about, I wanted to be able to take the kids to school in the morning sometimes. The oldest one, I'd never done that, and that's not where it's at now. Drop them off and throw them at the car at 8 o'clock in the morning, quick get out. But that was one of the drivers, that kind of, I wanted to have that flexibility, that I didn't always have to rely on everybody else to do everything. But then as time's progressed, the motivator for me is enjoying the successes that I've had from it, and being able to, some of the materialistic things of like being able to have nice holidays, to be able to move house, to be able to enjoy and the benefits of it. But then from a point of view of educating my two sons of what a good work-life balance is, the fact that, you might feel a bit crap one day, but you still want to school, because that's what I have to do, I tried to be ill at the beginning of this week. That wasn't happening because I was still sitting at home working, so you're continuously working. But my motivator, we went to the Maldives last year for a couple of weeks on holiday, and I still had my laptop and I was still working, but actually I did that because I want to do it, and the family are aware that I do that because it helps drive our lifestyle and what's there. So for me, it's about my personal success, but I think everybody's success is a difference. So it doesn't have to be a multi-million-pound business. It might be, I was talking to someone last night, and it might just be the fact that they've got some creativity themselves, that they want to be able to indulge themselves in it and still keep a part-time job, but they want to be able to have something themselves to do. So it depends on your own successes, really.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, what we'll do then, we'll open it up to the floor. We'll do a bit Q&A. So I'll pass this to you. Yeah.
Get your steps in.
If you've got a question, just pop your hand up and Laura will come over.
Hi, I'm Chris. I've got a question for Richard, and it's to do with what we were talking about earlier when we go back to talking about risk and stuff like that. So I know a little bit about. I'll just give an example. For example, in a company called Indivior, which is a pharmaceutical company. At the moment, they're a spin-off from Reckitt Benckiser, and I know that they're going through. They will sell some opiate drugs that to stop people from to get people off heroin and stuff like that. And they're going through a massive legal battle at the moment, where basically in America they've been classed as selling the drug because they've been going to doctors' pharmacies and saying, oh, because they've got like this film on that dissolves and stuff like that. So I guess my question is, on that risk side of things with pharmaceuticals, how you can basically do something slightly wrong and then be taken to court. How do you manage all that risk?
Well, you lose sleepless nights at times, without a doubt, because ultimately, in our side of the pharma, we don't know every day what products we're going to get asked to make. Now, it's a very quick turnaround, different to the size of the companies that you're talking about there, where they'll have a production line of one product that's gone through years of testing and clinical trials before it goes out. Our testing is on the day of that product, and the patient needs it tomorrow, even if they're in Northern Ireland or Southeast England or Pallion. So some of the stronger ones in Pallion, so there's risk all the time. So the way that you alleviate the risk, or at least minimise the risk, is your quality management system. So you have the right people. I'm not a pharmacist or a scientist. My brother's not. So we've got 4 or 5 pharmacists, 5 biomeds. We've got very experienced production staff who basically have to follow a very strict set of rules manufacturing every product. There's lots of companies out there that you wouldn't believe in pharma that don't follow strict procedures. I think we all just presume that when you get a medicine, it's what it should be, but there's a lot, unfortunately, that aren't. Most of the time it's minimal risk, but the odd time when it's severe, people die, and it's happened a lot in the industry. So obviously for us, we didn't want to compromise for commercial gain on quality standards. Lots of people do. Now, we wanted to build our business for a long-term objective, not to make money quickly. And the only way to do that was to make sure that you had longevity, was to make sure that people trusted that your products were safe and of a high quality. So you put your quality management systems in first, you get the right people to be able to manage those. And then ultimately you still have to rely on people within the process to be able to follow those processes, because it's such a bespoke operation. So times things go wrong and people will do the wrong thing, but what you try and do is there's always a human element in everything, unless you had machines making everything for you. So therefore it's trying to plug as many holes in the system that you've got, so that human error is less likely if they follow the procedures. but ultimately there's always a sign-off that has to be done. But you're at risk every day. The busier you get, the more numbers you're pumping out, the more risky it is. We also get governed by the MHRA, so if the MHRA come out, we've damaged a patient or shown that with his negligence in what we do, then the company gets shut down and we're all goosed, basically. So that's in the back of your mind. There's a commercial benefit to it. There's also, you got to drive and push more orders through, but not to the compromise any safety or quality.
Yeah. Thank you.
No problem.
Hello, I'm Johnny. I find when I'm working on my business on projects, because I'm a graphic designer, so say I'm doing design for my own business, I find it really difficult because it's my business and I'm too critical of it. But I'm fine when I'm working on client projects. So do you prefer to do work on your own business, or do you prefer to work on clients' business, or do you find one easier than the other?
In a word, yes. I think a lot of people who are sort of kind of graphically design focused would probably feel exactly the same as that. That actually, you are your own biggest critic sometimes, and yeah, sometimes you do actually just have to kind of let it go. As long as you're happy with the quality of something, you can sort of redo and eventually you end up with something that you don't like anymore. Whereas, you're on version 30 and version 2 was all right. It is easier to do it with other people's stuff. To a certain degree. I suppose the biggest indicator really is, are they happy? Because if they're happy, great. It actually, in my experience, is sometimes you'll not be happy with it, but they will. You actually just have to let it go sometimes. And as long as they're happy, that's the main thing. They're the client. They've got what they wanted. They got what they paid for. You might look at it and go, well, that's crap. I know I could do better than that. You've got to let it go and hope that they are telling the truth and they'll come back if they are indeed happy with what you've done. Does that answer your question?
It does, yes. Thank you.
Fabulous.
Hi, I'm Mark from Lighthouse Therapy Group. Question to anybody there. You all mentioned at some point family. And when setting up in your own business, how much support and everything did you get from family, and how important were they for it?
Well, I've only got a very small family, but I remember having a conversation with my brother, which really peed me off, and actually has been a really big driver of it, of wanting to be it. I remember going to him being employed and saying, right, I'm thinking about setting up a consultancy, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And he said, what are you doing that for? Don't be so ridiculous, go off and just go and be, go and do some interim fills on maternity covers or year-long contracts and things. And actually it's probably been one of the drivers behind it to go, actually, do you know what, I can do this. And because you've said that, you kind of criticised from an early point, and up until even maybe 4 years ago, he never once asked how the business was going. So from a driver's point of view. So otherwise, I've only got my mum and dad, and obviously my husband. And do you know, over time, I think people get sick of you talking about it, and it's quite a lonely place being on a business owner without having people around. What I would say is that to be able to find that support outside, because your family, at the end of the day, they've got jobs, you do your job, and sometimes it is difficult when you want to just discuss the situation or to find something. So I think finding a good support network is a really important thing, and I'm lucky enough that a lady who I'm really friendly with, who's in our offices as well, we sit and do some mentoring together, and we work together, and to be able to support each other and discuss about the hot topics or the concerns that you've got, or just even a ridiculous question that you kind of sweat the small stuff sometimes, and you still do that however far on you are. Would you agree? Yeah. Yeah. So it's it's quite important just to have the right support around it as well.
Is there something there about attitude to risk? So your brother was like, what are you doing that for? Is that because he was viewing that from his risk-averse position? And I know Richard obviously... Well, but there is something in that, I think. I don't know. No, I would agree with that. I think my brother very much plays it safe, and I don't think you would see anybody with risk, or probably want. Not that he wouldn't want me to succeed, but I don't think he saw that there was the opportunity that was there. And even after talking with him and explaining the marketplace and about what the opportunities and things were, so yeah, I think it probably is very risk averse, and I suppose people do worry about you stepping out to do that, but it's one of them things, isn't it?
I think like I said, I'm an optimist. My brother is slightly more pessimistic than me. It's probably a good combination. We work together, so maybe we sort of bounce off each other a little bit. I think, but when setting up the business, I think I was just about to get married. We just had another child, and I just bought a new house. It was the worst time probably to leave a very secure job, well-paid job at the time, that to just jump ship and then not get paid for 6 months. So, because the business couldn't afford to give me a wage. My wife probably thought it was a little bit gung-ho to do, but she trusted me that I was, at the end of the day, my whole purpose of it, other than self-satisfaction and wanting to do better, was to support the family and make sure that we could have a better life than potentially I could have given just working for someone else. So she had to trust that. I didn't, even though I'm optimistic, I wasn't gung-ho with it. You know what I mean? The risks were high, but I felt like I was very confident that it was going to pay off. And I think support of your family. The hard thing is working with family is that you test each other's ties, you know what I mean? Me and my brother barely had an argument in our lives until we worked together. We sit next to each other, but we dust it off and we move on from any sort of disagreements that we have. But I think you do need support, but you also need, I suppose from my point, I was probably my wife making sure that she was, I don't go home and take the weight of the world on my shoulders. I try and walk in the house and forget about what's going on at work, because if you take it home with you all the time, I think then it affects your home life and family life as well. So there's probably many nights where she was asleep thinking everything was cool at work and I was stressing inside. But I think, if you've got confidence to do it and you've got the support of people and trust of people, then I think it's the main thing to help you motivate to be successful for them.
Hi, I'm Dan. I don't know how many meetings you do or how many networking events you go to, but have you noticed any common mistakes or any common bad mindsets of young people or people trying to start a new business? Is there anything you've noticed?
I mean, I think that you have to be realistic with your business plans to start with, and we didn't have much money to set up the company and borrowed 15 grand off the bank and put 15 grand in ourselves. But we had we did a 5-year business plan and a cash flow forecast, and I think that you have to be as prepared as you can be before going into it. I think that if you don't do that, then there's a chance that it's going to fail quite early. I think people say that 5 years, a lot of businesses don't last 4 and stuff like that. But I think if you've got a focus and you remain focused on your targets, you might achieve things that you didn't think that was a route you were going to achieve them in. But as long as you're driven and don't be under any misconceptions that it's going to be easy, because it's not. It's all down to you. When you set up your own business, you can't rely or hide behind other people in a business. So I think you have to be extremely driven and also extremely, I think, organised to actually, before you take that plunge and start a business. And financial risk is big for anyone. If you're borrowing money, make sure that we borrowed money at different times to expand and stuff like that. And you've got to make sure that you can actually afford to pay that money back and the terms are right, and get the advice that you can to make sure that you're not getting, because there's a lot of people who lend money out there and the terms can cripple businesses if you don't if you don't look at them legally correctly. So I think you just have to be focused and motivated, and also very make sure that your planning's good before you go into it, in my opinion.
Did you? Yeah.
What he said. On a joke. No, I would say from a mistakes point of view, I wouldn't have said I'd seen any common mistakes. More, as we're saying there, I think you've got to have the right sort of mentality, as in, do you know your own stuff? Are you good? Are you confident you're good? Do you think people would buy from you? If not, then you're probably doing it wrong. You've got to get that sorted in your head, and if you have the confidence and you believe the product or service to do that, then you can sort of kind of drive your own mindset to think, well, why wouldn't people buy from me or work with me? Then actually that's quite valuable once you kind of got yourself sorted and organised. If you are good at what you do, people probably will buy stuff from you. I don't think there's any mistake other than maybe overconfidence.
So a question about the confidence there, because you tend to meet a lot of people that do have confidence, but what about the people that are just starting off, and like how do you find that, and how do you balance your mental health when you're first starting off?
Okay, I'm going to go with that. I used to be quite struggling for confidence, and actually somebody taught me something about confidence that really has helped me over time. Confidence is only effective when it's perceived by others. So even when you don't feel confident, if you actually act like you are, like I am right now, people will think you are. Oh, I'm absolutely bricking it. But no, that actually really helped me over time. I actually used to do similar sort of things to Ian and sort of stand up and deliver face-to-face training in front of up to 80 to 100 people at a time, and that can be absolutely terrifying. But yeah, the thing is, like I said, confidence is a perception of other people. So if they think you're confident, they will treat you as if you are. It actually doesn't matter whether you are or whether you're not. You know, you could be trembling inside, but it doesn't really make any difference. If they think you're confident, they'll treat you as such, and you'll get that effect of whatever that you feel the confidence would bring you. You just have to, at least for the first little bit, if you're not, just pretend.
Well, I think confidence is quite difficult. I remember, I think probably back on that last question that's just been said, I remember I was working full time, being paid a really good salary, and then I got my first piece of work, and I remember saying to the accountant who I was working with, how much do I charge for this? Can I do it? And she was like, well, what do you think we do? We'll pay for you to come to work every day, and we'll pay you that amount of money to come in. So of course you can write a letter for somebody, you know. So I had the confidence to set the business up, but then it was the confidence to actually enable to start doing the work that needs to come. And I think over time, I would say over the last 7 years, I've become a very different person. I was always confident. Yeah. I was always confident, but I would say that I'm a lot stronger and more confident about being able to put myself across and about what I want to achieve and about how I want to achieve it, which gives the people that I work with the confidence in our ability as a business to be able to deliver what they want as well. So I think it's very difficult. And when you mix that, obviously, we deal a lot with people with mental health through different businesses, and it is a difficult balance, but I think the work-life balance that we spoke about is very important. So it's about making sure that you take the time for yourself to ensure that you're well enough to be able to run the business and have that focus, because it is hard. It is difficult.
Thanks.
Hey, I'm Cameron. Just a question about growth. A lot of us are like quite early businesses, so I just wanted to ask, what do you think the biggest barriers to growth for your businesses were, and how did you overcome them?
I think, yeah, you can put Alf on.
Okay. Being absolutely bloody terrified was probably the biggest barrier, because as my business has grown, I've become an employer. So it's easy when it's just me, because then I only have me to worry about. But actually now I'm responsible for the livelihoods of another 3 people. That's quite a lot of pressure. So yeah, when I'm considering whether or not to actually take on somebody new, I really have to give it a lot of thought. As I mentioned right at the top, I've been made redundant before. You've made lots of people redundant before. It sucks, doesn't it? Yeah, it's awful. For all your redundancy needs, Oculus HR. So yeah, that for me would be the biggest barrier, was more of a mental one. The business was there, I thought. You know, we had more work than we could actually comfortably cope with, and it's taken that leap of faith that you believe you are good enough, that your customers will continue to come back and you'll get new ones, enough to sustain not only you but also these other people who you're responsible for. I would imagine in time, as businesses grow to be very large, that sort of thought process might change, but you know, there's only 4 or 5 of us in my business, so you know, I very much do have to think about, you know, when I look at the business bank account, I'm thinking, can I actually afford to pay them this month? Because that's my responsibility to make sure that I can do that. I'd rather pay them than me if the money wasn't there. Obviously that's not going to last very long if I can't afford to pay myself. So yeah, the biggest barrier to growth for me is actually, yeah, kind of having the guts to employ someone and take responsibility for them as an employee. Have you pondered?
I think a couple of different areas. I think for me, there's been quite a few times over the last few years where you feel like you've done what you can, and you're kind of like tipping on the scale to kind of go, but I want to take the next step, but I don't know what that next step is. And I think cash flow, really, as you've said, is something that I've thought throughout these conversations. Is cash flow is so important to make sure that you've got the money there. And I've done it all self-funded, so I haven't took any money from anywhere else, and so you have to be very aware of what's coming in. And so I've built a lot of my business around retainers. So every single month I've got a guaranteed amount that's coming in when people pay the bills. But I've got a guaranteed amount that's coming in, which actually for me has helped to be able to grow, because at least I know I've got X coming in and the bills are going to be this. So, each month I know there's a profit there before even everything's being cleared off when people pay. So, but it took me a good couple of years to kind of get into that mindset, and being able to charge people and knowing what cost to charge people is still something that I ponder over, of what's acceptable and what's not. So there's those things, but also thinking about the sales, making sure the sales come in so you've got the cash flow to be able to get it in the right position where you want it to be. So, and then once you open that, I think, and then once you start talking about it more about what you want to achieve, I think it's more susceptible to make it happen as well.
I think one of the biggest factors in stopping you from growing is normally yourself and your decisions that you make. To be honest, I think you've got to have confidence in what you're doing. So we set up, like I said before, myself, my brother, and my sister was the office, and as we went out and saw pharmacies and we started getting people buying into us and getting us accounts, cash flow was difficult. Like I say, I didn't take a salary for 6 months. My brother had to take a salary earlier, and my sister had to take a salary day one because she's our older sister, so she made sure that she did. But I had enough to keep us going for 6 months. I moonlighted for a bit, still working for my old company as well. Used their expenses to set up accounts for us. Different industry, but our biggest step for growth was there was regulatory changes that came in to our industry. We used to get every product manufactured by a third party, which was great because our overhead was simply the costs of the goods that we're buying them for, travelling expenses in the office, and the office staff grew. In the first year, we went from my sister and my niece, keep the theme going, and then we finally employed the first non-family member during that year as well. That was just to facilitate orders more than anything else. But the next step for us was really taking it in-house, i.e. the manufacturing. Now, when I looked at labs and stuff, because I used to we used to audit production facilities and these shiny labs with people in suits, I was thinking, Christ, this must cost millions to be able to do this. But the more audits I did, the more I was asking questions like, what do they get paid and how much was that bit of kit and different things like that. So for us to really kick on to another level was we needed to build our own lab. Now, we'd only been trading for a year, so it was a bit suicidal, really. My brother was like, nah, we can't do this. And obviously I was like, we definitely can. And then we found a lab designer who gave us a cost to build. We borrowed money. So different what you were saying, and you self-funded everything. We couldn't. The turnover and our profit was enough, but we didn't have enough cash because everything's on invoice. It's not cash transactions. We're not dealing with general public. People would pay you late all the time. Pharmacies would be paying you on 30 days terms. They'd be paying you 90 days. And there was times when we thought, we haven't got enough money, and you're grafting to get people to pay you. But if you looked on paper, we were doing really well. We just didn't have the cash. But then, so we borrowed money, quite a sizable amount of money as well. And there was a huge risk. That was the riskiest time, and it was very early in our sort of development. So the banks wouldn't lend us that level of money. It was through like FW Capital, I think they were called, but it was not high interest, but it was higher interest than what the banks would give. But we had to be confident to deliver those figures. So we built the lab, and our staff went from 6 to 20 in the space of a few months, and we had to get that lab generating money once it was built, and that was the biggest risk. There was times then when you thought we've bitten off too much than we can chew, but all we did was just constantly go out and see customers, sell the service, sell the options, and giving them that. And because we had control of quality standards then, rather than relying on someone else, we could provide a better service than we did when we were doing it third party. But there was probably an 18-month period where it was nerve-wracking whether you were going to do it. But I think if you've got confidence in what you're doing, not overconfidence, too much belief that where it's gung-ho. But I think if you have that mindset that we can achieve something and you've got a clear plan on how to achieve it, then more often than not you will. There's always outside circumstances, but I think if you've got the confidence to do it, then it can happen.
Hi, my name's Chris. This is a question about mindset, I think. Well, actually, I know it is, but so you mentioned about what I've been interested lately. I've been thinking a lot about reframing the way I think about things. I didn't realise the power of it, actually. And you mentioned about employing 3 people, and you said that was a lot of responsibility and it was a lot of pressure. But then what it struck me is like you're employing 3 people, giving them three people a decent standard of living. Maybe it's a privilege. So I was thinking that's the same situation, but like looking at it a different way. So I was wondering if there's been ever a time where you've had to reframe the way you thought about something and it's been beneficial to any of you.
I don't know. I mean, I'm quite a positive person. I don't know if that comes across, but I am. You know what I mean? I always think the best of things that's going to happen. Doesn't always happen that way, but people had to take a leap of faith to come and join us. So especially when we expanded, so there was the mindset then was that they've taken a leap of faith to leave a secure job in a far bigger company than us to come and join us because we're telling them how good it's going to become, but it's not that good yet. And people who on good salaries and stuff like that as well with high qualifications and people who are on low salaries, it doesn't matter. They've took a leap of faith to come and join you. So you have a drive inside you to make sure that you don't let all them down as well. Never mind yourself. But I think that, mine, other than looking after myself and my family, my brother and different things like that, make sure that we could afford to pay the bills. When you have a lot of staff and they've taken a leap of faith to come to you, I think you've almost got to be protective of them. Not be more cautious if you're confident in what you're doing, but I think that the mindset for me was really we need to protect these people around us, and we've had a really good retention with staff. And I think the benefit personally of having your own business is you can mould it whichever way you want. You can mould the attitude in the building whichever way you want, better than maybe people that you've worked for. And I think everyone that came into us had worked in companies where they were maybe a smaller cog and their sort of voice wasn't heard as much, whereas we have a bit of a open platform for people to be able to voice things that they think could be better in the business. And I think that really helps, having an open mind with your staff. If you have staff, or regardless of the number of staff that you have, is having an open mind to make sure that you listen to people and potentially look at things not just from your own mindset but from others as well.
Can I just make an observation, because your business has changed recently?
It has.
And I think that's required a different... Has that changed the way you think about it?
Yeah, we got bought out in April last year. Not out of the blue. We had a few approaches, but the industry that we're in, we have licenses where we can manufacture quite strange things. And I don't know if you're aware, but in October 2018, cannabis was scheduled as a medicinal product, and we have the capabilities to manufacture cannabis. So suddenly there's 9 companies in the UK that can do that, and us being one of them. So we were suddenly getting approached by people to buy Rockshaw or partially acquire or whatever, and it was difficult. It was nice, but out of the companies that approached us, the hard thing was we could have sold to different companies and sold out the staff who'd taken a leap of faith, which we didn't want to do. Yes, the financial gain for us personally would have been great and things like that, but I think we had to protect all those staff that had joined us, and we're still quite a new company. So the company we chose to sell to wanted to keep all the staff in Sunderland, which was a big thing for us. They wanted to invest heavily in us, not just for our shares and the ownership, but also keep the staff that we've got. They didn't want to, knock it down and set up in London or whatever. But the mindset change was difficult because we were making the decisions all the time for the last 7 years. I still class the cash as my cash. You know what I mean? If someone's paid too much for a flight or a train, I'm like, well, you could have got that cheaper. And I'm thinking, well, it's not my money anymore, is it? But but the mindset changes. Then you've got to answer to other people again. So we're not working for other people. We're shareholders in a bigger company now, but we're still driving Rockshaw from here in this new space. So we've building a new production facility. I'm not going to tell you the address, but manufacturing cannabis quite significantly for Europe. So but the mindset change is difficult. We wanted to protect the staff, not just look at it from a personal financial gain. We needed to protect the staff to make sure their jobs were all secure, and they were going to be invested in, which is what they've done, which has been great for everyone in here. It's a whirlwind now because we're not just running Rockshaw, we're getting pulled into lots of other things as well. But it's exciting because I'm too young to retire, even though I would like to get my handicap down. So therefore, we've got a lot of things that we need to achieve within the company now that we're part of a bigger group, to be able to sort of be satisfied and potentially walk away one day, but only if everyone's secure in the building for that to happen.
I had a good think about that, the question about mindset, and I think I've actually changed my mindset without realising it, and it kind of stems from a conversation I had with my mother, and she just about understands what we do. I don't think she cares, to be honest, but she sort of was asking me about where the business is going and what I'm going to be doing. I'm like, when I've got my yacht and my Aston Martin, because I quite like an Aston Martin, and her attitude was very much along the lines of, what? Don't be silly. And I actually think, well, why not? Do people not buy Aston Martins? I'm pretty certain they do. Do people not have huge luxury lots? Because I'm pretty certain that I've seen them. So why not me? Is it possible? Well, yeah. And her mindset is very much, well, no, don't be daft. You're a young lad from Sunderland. It's like, well, actually, no, I am, but it doesn't mean that I can't get those things if that's what I choose to do. So that's actually been my mindset change, that if I want to, then, well, I'll have to work bloody hard for quite a long time, but why not? It's possible. So, yeah, I kind of changed my own mindset.
Bought a pedal.
I drive a Volvo at the minute.
I would probably just say it's very much about being the positive mindset. I think, as Richard said there, it's the idea that when you get up in the morning, you want to give it a go. And yes, there's obstacles that are thrown in your path every day, but you just learn how to deal with them, and the bits that you're worried about at the very beginning, maybe it's the company name, or whether you were going to have a virtual office, or who you were going to look at. All those things that were big issues at the time, actually they're not relevant. It's kind of sweating the small stuff, so to speak, and then getting to the point where you can just enjoy. I enjoy going to work. I enjoy running the business. I enjoy what it provides. So I think if you've got that type of mindset and the positiveness, and talking today about other things that I can do, and kind of getting that fire back in the belly of like, oh, actually we could do this as a business, and we could move on, and we could do this, and actually there's great potential in that. And already over the last couple of days had these thoughts, set up meetings already, and actually there's a potential there to do something different and grow it bigger and better. So if you've got that, it's just inbuilt. So anything's possible, as you just said.
Good stuff. Well, what you've just done there, you've kind of reiterated some of the topics we've spoke about today. Give some real world examples. I mean, whilst you were talking there, we've talked about people, systems, perfection be the enemy of good, being prepared and focusing, self-belief, confidence of costs as well. We spoke about that, didn't we? Work-life balance and imposter syndrome. Recurring revenue. Louise, you talked about recurring revenue. We've had a discussion about that today as well, and how important that is in business. So I hope you found that insightful. Thanks so much for your honesty as well. You kind of beat that real world experience. So let's give a hand for our panelists, please.